Our friends, welcome to the channel, Bob here, and welcome to more talking about kind of MMOs. I should kind of start a series, really, like just name it something extravagant, because I seem to have quite a lot to say about it at the moment. I guess you kind of had more to say about something when you're maybe more disappointed with a thing, I guess. Maybe that's kind of how it works, and you have less to say when you're happy with something. I guess that's just human nature, maybe. But anyway, this is kind of a bit talking about MMOs, but also kind of like a response to the previous video that I did. So I guess this is more of kind of like a Embers Adrifty video, but not completely. But anyway, it's interesting looking at how we reason as to why something is happening. Obviously, this goes in real life, outside of gaming, but in MMOs, that's kind of the thing I'm interested in at the moment. And I think what we have is just there's little that goes on in the middle. I find, unfortunately, it's kind of not really fence sitting, but just analysing and trying to be logical about things. It's all emotion. You're either on one side. Again, this is very, very strongly happening culturally in real life at the moment. But you're either on one side where everything the developers does is great and there's a good reason for it, and because they've decided this is the way they're going to do it, then it's the right way of doing it. And then you've got the opposite emotion to that. But there's very little analysis or logical thinking going on within the middle. And I think it's a shame, because I think that if there was, like, we could come out of it a bit healthier. Games I think would be better, and they would be enjoyed by more people. Whereas I think at the moment there's just two extremes, and I think what happens is that I guess it's easy as a developer just to kind of bounce off the negative emotions and just lap up all of the positive emotions. And if someone, even if it's a very small minority of people, are telling you that you're doing something right, then maybe you latch on to that. I don't know, but I'm sure that the developers of MMOs are probably a bit more logical than that. But I don't kind of see that really when I play the games. I think that's a problem. But maybe that's my issue. Maybe. I say it's my issue. Like if you're being told that you've been waiting for something and we're going to give it to you, and then you'll play it and it's not that thing, is it kind of really your fault if you bounce off of it? I don't know. I think it goes back to what I said in the previous videos, that maybe developers need to get away from that. We're creating a classic MMO for you, and look at trying to market it in a different way. But anyway, what I normally find happens is a couple of things when you make a thing, talking about a thing, and you're not 100% positive about it. There's a couple of things that happen, a couple of responses you get from other people. The first one is that you don't get it, or you don't understand, why this is happening. And of course that's obviously untrue. If you've been playing MMOs for any length of time, you get a good grasp of what they're about. If you've been playing MMOs as long as I have, you have a good grasp of how they evolved or devolved, is that a word, through the last 25 years or whatever it may be, to the point where they are at the moment. And you were there playing those games at the time, and you've moved through the MMO history playing them and seeing all the changes and stuff. But not just that, like, we're in a position now, as I said before, where you can actually play these MMOs again in pretty much their original form if you want to. So you can go back, if you've never played EverQuest or Asheron's Call or whatever it may be, like, you can actually go back and play them yourself, to compare to what you're playing at the moment. I know it's difficult. I know that people get scared off of classic MMOs, particularly if you've never played them before, because you've heard of how extreme or hardcore there are. But what I would, if you're someone who's playing a modern classic MMO, and you've never actually played the classics, I would say that you're really missing out, because one of the things that modern MMOs are not doing is they're not giving you answers to questions, which is exactly what classic MMOs did, and that's why they were so good. But I'll come back to that a bit later. So the thing that you generally hear is that you don't get it or you don't understand it, which is it's false in any way it could possibly be false. Decisions that are made in games, I can understand why they're made. What I don't understand is why players they're not given answers to those questions. And secondly, it's possible for some decisions to just be wrong. Not just in a particular game, even if you're going for something completely new, but that could still be wrong in a grander sense of the audience that you're trying to appeal to. And if you look at a game like EverQuest, for example, EverQuest posed puzzles and problems to the players, but it also gave you answers. So when you start off in EverQuest, you've got a very very limited amount of inventory slots. But as you progress, the game gives you an answer to that. As you progress, you get better, you get more inventory space. And in an RPG, it just makes logical sense that this happens. The big part of an RPG is that your character goes through a journey, it progresses, it gets better. And in the classic MMOs, pretty much everything gets better. There's always an answer to a problem that's posed by the game. So as you go through the game, your inventory space increases because you're getting better as a character, and you're getting more money as a character, and you're able to outfit your character in better equipment that lets you carry more stuff. Essentially, games that don't follow the principle of inventory slots, they go by weight, also have this. Even a very extreme sandbox MMO like Worm Online understands that you need to give answers to your problems. So Worm Online doesn't deal in inventory slots particularly. It goes more by the way of weight. So you have an inventory, you have a bag that you can essentially put as many things in as you want, as long as you can carry them. But as your character progresses, the amount of weight that you can carry increases, and so it's character progression again. Your character is moving forward. If we look at something like nighttime, having a very, very dark night, for example, in a game like EverQuest, it gives you answers to that problem. You start off as a human in Kenos or Freeport, whatever it may be. Freeport I found has got a lot more light going on around it. It's more populated. But if you're in Kenos Hills at night, it's pitch black as a human. But as you progress, as your character progresses, the game gives you answers for that. Gives you an answer to those problems. So you might be lucky enough to be a class that can cast a spell on yourself that increases your sight. That helps your sight to see better at night time. Even if you're not, you can get items that have these effects on them. So the game is posing a problem and it's giving you an answer to the problem. If you happen to be in a game where the run, say another example, the run speed is too slow, or the run speed is slow, so you're purposely so your travel around the world is slow. The game has purposely done that. To make but then the game is giving you answers to that problem. So you start off as a new character in the game is essentially saying to you, movement in the game throughout the world is slow, and because you're a new character, you're feeling the full force of that effect. But as you move along the game gives you options and answers to that problem, where you can move quicker, whether it's in the form of abilities or spells or mounts in Worm Online's case, or whatever it may be. The game is giving you answers to that. So a good game is posing problems, but always giving you answers to those problems. And this sort of leads into the question: you just don't understand it. Well, of course I understand it. I understand why a game might want there to be a dark night time, for example. Maybe it's more immersive. Maybe it's what makes the world more dangerous. But a good game will give you. So that is a problem, and people do find it a problem. I don't believe anyone when they say, I love it being pitch black at night. I don't believe that. Yeah, from a danger point of view, it increases your anxiety. You get a bit of an adrenaline rush, and that's fine. But as for liking it, I don't get that. Why would anyone not want to be able to see where they're going? So I can understand it being tuned to an extreme at the beginning of your character's life, but as you move through the game and your character gets better, you're given options so that doesn't become a problem anymore. Same with inventory space or any other problem that the game poses to you. A good game design should have a problem, so you feel like your character is making progress. Now the problem with Embers Adrift and other classic MMOs that I'm seeing is that they're not offering any answers to the problems. So it's almost like they're saying we want this to be like a in a certain way a real world simulator, but even then it's not really. Another answer another response I've heard as well as you just don't understand why it's there or whatever it may be is that it's more realistic. Well, it's not. Again, because in the real world, if I was posed with a problem of I was needing to travel somewhere, but my travel was too slow, then the real world has answers to that. And I'm not talking about buses and trains. Just go back 1,000 years with donkeys and horses. The world would give me an option. It would give me an answer to the fact that my travel was too slow. So it's not realistic. If you think of like a hunter-gatherer starting off, maybe you're a boy. You're weak, and as you get older, you progress. You get stronger. You're able to do more, travel faster. You're able to carry more. So even in the real world, just through evolution and kind of people's intelligence and practicality, the world gives you answers to your problems. So it's not even realistic. Saying, oh well, I'm limiting in inventory space as an example, because that's what you'd be able to carry in real life. Is not really. It's not realistic. The other thing as well, I think, to come to is that whether it's realistic or not is how it affects the game itself and the enjoyment of the game. And are players enjoying it? Are players playing our game and staying and enjoying it, or are they just leaving? If so, why are they leaving? Well, some of it is to do with performance. Some people are finding the game a problem from a performance point of view. That gets blamed on Unity. Some of it is visually and animations. That's you're going to get that. That's just one of those things. People can load up a AAA game and go, I don't quite like the visuals, and bounce off of it. That's not unusual in gaming. But I think when people are bouncing off because of decisions that you've made mechanically, and particularly when you haven't given players any answers, because that's what RPGs are all about. RPGs are all about posing a problem and then giving an answer to that problem. And I think overall one of the big issues of Embers Adrift is that it's not giving you answers to the problems that it's posing. And I just feel that is either poor design. I think it's a miss, isn't it? Because the game, I didn't feel as though my character was progressing really as I was leveling up. Because the game doesn't deal in stats, for example. You don't feel like you're getting stronger particularly in any way. The only real difference that the only real progress your character makes is from a hit point of view, and some stat bonuses like parry and all that kind of stuff. Which again, it is progress. But there are so many other small things to a character's progress in RPG, and like when you're level 1 and you've got a certain amount of inventory space, and you get to level 40 and you've got the same amount of inventory space, there's kind of something wrong there. There's a disconnect between your character being a low-level character and then improving as you go along, and just gaining answers to these problems, as I said, that are being posed. I don't think that these games are giving you answers and that's where the other games had. I think that's where the classic MMOs. I think that's where their design was just fantastic, in a sense that they posed your problems. Some of these problems were quite strict, quite hard, and I think that's why a lot of maybe more modern MMO players look at them and think, I don't think that's for me. But even in the most strictest of issues, those games still gave you an answer. Whether it was the death penalty in EverQuest, you die in the bottom of a dungeon. There are a number of answers that you can. There are a number of options in the game to answer that problem. You can get a high-level cleric to go and res you on the spot where you died. You can get a necromancer to summon your corpse. You can get a rogue or a monk or someone with invis or whatever it may be to go and drag your corpse to you. That kind. There are answers there for these problems. That's the whole reason why corpse dragging was in EverQuest. It's an answer to a problem. And I think, thinking about it, I think that's really what the issue is with these new modern MMOs, is that there's no answer to the problems. They're opposing, they're they're giving you a problem, which is fine, and we want that. We want challenge in a game, but they're not giving you answers to them. And it's not. And for me, it's not just about being as hard, as difficult as it can be. You know, as I said before, like people talk about difficulty, and I don't think EverQuest is difficult. I don't think Ultima Online is difficult. You know, they're time sinks, but they're not difficult. And I think there's a difference between that. Yeah, you might run out and into an area and it's dangerous, and you might aggro a mob that kills you that you weren't expecting to. But the only real downside to that is time. It's not dangerous in the sense that you actually felt the damage in real life or whatever. You know, you're not lying. You haven't fallen out of your gaming chair. You know, it's just time. So it's the time investment you need to go and get your corpse essentially. So I don't think it's about making things as hard as possible, but I think what it is about is posing a challenge to a player, but making sure there are answers to those problems. And I think that's overall the issue that Embers Adrift have, and it's nothing to do with the fact that you don't understand why it's there, or this mechanic is there for a reason. You know, I can sit here and come up with a number of what you might call real life or even gamey reasons why you can't expand your inventory, for example. But at the end of the day, it's a problem that the game is not allowing you to solve or to improve upon during your character's journey. And it also really makes no sense from a real life point of view. Again, it just feels, I've said this before, but it just feels like these classic MMOs are taking a classic MMO mechanic, whatever it may be, but then they're building their own game around it, and it doesn't work because we're coming into them with certain expectations. And I don't think it's unreasonable to come into an MMO and to expect. It's not unreasonable to come into an MMO and expect it to pose problems, even difficult problems, to you. But it's also not. It shouldn't be unusual for you to then expect there to be answers to those problems. And I think that I'm not sure whether it's a time thing, or I'm not sure whether there's kind of like a wrong idea of what's difficult or what's realistic or whatever it may be. But you've got to have answers to these problems. Yeah, and I think that was what classic games did. Like I've spoken to my youngest son about EverQuest because he plays a lot of World of Warcraft, and I think the thing to remember with them, to sum up, as I said, is that they pose difficult problems. They might seem extreme at the time, but there are answers to those problems, whether it's your ability to see or move quickly or what you can carry or whatever it may be. All of these problems are posed, but the game has or even a death penalty. You know, if you die at the bottom of a dungeon, EverQuest gives you a number of options for you to get out of that problem. That doesn't involve just fighting your way back to your corpse. You know, that's what it's all about. And I think that's where many of these games are failing. You know, we need answers to the problems that the games are posing, and the fact that this is just how we want to do it, or we're doing it because we're going for this realistic feeling, or whatever it may be, I'm afraid is not a good enough answer, because that then steps over the line into a stubbornness or a badness of design. Probably more of a stubbornness. You know, we need answers to the problems that you're posing so we can overcome them. You know, if you start off at level 1 and you got an issue and you get to level 40 and you've still got a problem that you can't overcome, well, where's the progress in that? It doesn't feel good as your character is leveling up. I think also is to just stop going on about this classic thing, you know, because you're putting mechanics into these games that are not classic, and I think that's why people are bouncing off of them, because we're coming into them expecting a certain thing, and you're not getting it, and you're kind of telling us that's what we're going to be getting, but we're not, and so we stop playing. You know, it's that's it. I think that's what we need in games going ahead, like Pantheon. You know, I want Pantheon to pose challenges to me, even extreme challenges, but I want ways to overcome those challenges. I don't want to get to level 50 and some challenge that the game threw at me at level 1 I still can't solve at level 50. That's not what we want. But anyway, that's just me, you know. I don't know. I mean, many of you say the same sort of thing, so there's a lot of us out there. Anyway, thanks for watching. Yeah, just to follow up, just talking about just kind of trying to deal with some of the responses you get to to push back, you know, when you push back against certain things, and why I don't think those responses are particularly valid, because they're not part of an overall RPG or MMORPG game design. You know, I think that, well, I won't repeat myself. I'll stop the video here. Thanks for listening and watching, and I'll speak to you again soon. Hello, welcome back to the end of the end of the video, the PS bit, because I kind of, as often happens in videos, I sidetrack myself, and there was something just quickly that I've got to talk about, and that was a word that comes up quite a lot, and that is meaning. Well, it's two words: meaningful choices. When we talk about these things, that's something I see quite a lot. People come up with quite a lot. You know, a small inventory space means that you need to make meaningful choices as to what you're going to take out with you. Really, again, you know, I go back to my previous answer. A character needs to have a progression path, whatever it may be. So that's part of an RPG. So what you're essentially saying is you want to remove that from RPGs. But also, is it really meaningful? It's not. The reason you're making this decision is because you know you're going to go out and you're going to have a frustrating time trying to manage your inventory, because I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but when I go out in Embers Adrift, my inventory is full up within an hour, even if I go out empty. So what, do I need to go back every hour to sell stuff? You know, just so that I'm not losing out on money that I might need in the future. Is that a meaningful choice? Not really. But then this kind of links into the armor weight thing. Oh, you need to make meaningful decisions. Well, you know, it is spending a lot of time going through a dungeon and getting to the boss and killing the boss and getting the drop and then not being able to wear it. What's the mean? There's nothing meaningful about that. Really, you know, it's like what's meaningful about it? Yeah, so you've got a choice to make, but there can be a situation where something gives you just a bad choice to make. It's not a good choice. And I think that's where we are. You know, it's okay. So I've got a shiny breastplate of, you know, +10. Ooh, look at me, I'm fabulous, kind of thing. But if I want to wear that, I've got to take off my +10 boots of, ooh, look, I'm marvelous, and my +10 gloves of, ooh, look, I'm marvelous. Well, that's not a choice. What sort of a choice is that? That's a bad choice. You know, it's not meaningful in any way. It's a bad choice. A meaningful decision will be going up against a fire dragon and wearing fire resist gear, and then going up against an ice dragon and wearing cold resist gear. That's meaningful choices with regards to what you're wearing. Being forced to not wear something because you don't have enough weight to wear it is not meaningful. And I kind of laugh when I see people making that defence. It's not meaningful at all. You know, spending all of your time going out and doing something and accomplishing something and then getting rewarded for it, and the reward is that you either don't wear the reward, or you take off other rewards to put on this one reward, it's not meaningful, and it's not a good choice. It's just terrible design. The same with inventory space. There's nothing meaningful about having to empty your bag all the time into your bank space that you need to keep feeding gold to, so you've got enough space in the first place, which is not classic by the way. Yeah, sorry, I got a bit arsey at the end of the video, but that's the thing that kind of really frustrates me the most. These are not meaningful choices, they're bad choices, and they've got absolutely no place in an MMO, in my opinion. Anyway, there you go. Thanks, that's definitely it now.